Fellas, we have been in Oklahoma City for less than 24 hours, and if you had over 2.5 tornadoes on FanDuel, well, that's a winning bet right now.
What a 24 it's been. We've been in a bunker. We met some good people. I didn't even take it serious, but, I mean, I should have when we heard those sirens go off outside and everybody started running.
Yeah, we were taping stuff outside, and then we weren't.
Yeah.
No word of a lie. We were literally starting to tape stuff, and then...
Great call to get out of there.
Yeah.
Great call.
There was a message to a phone saying tornado warning, and then literally like you would see in a movie, a siren starts going off in the town square, and it's like, oh, everybody get inside.
Yeah.
And we were bunkered in. We are taping this live today here in the hotel, but like we were supposed to tape it outside. But then a tornado happened, and we got. Are those Pacer fans over there watching us? Yeah, or Thunder fans? Yeah, there we go.
Thunder.
I think they're Thunder fans.
Thunder.
But yeah. So this is Basketball Island. Hein, Hambone, Jevohn, and shout out to Fab and Wes who are in Canada. Yeah, they're joining us just
the brothers.
In spirit.
We'll Photoshop them in later.
Yes, but they're lucky. They missed the tornadoes, and we're in OKC. It's Shay's first finals. Probably could be. Yeah. This could be a lot. We better get to know OKC because we could be here a lot. Yeah. They're heavy favorites. Talking to people around the city, seems like everybody's just saying it's not a matter of if, it's how many games. And everyone seems to think it's 5 because they want to clinch it at home. So, Jevohn, are you giving the Pacers any kind of shot here?
I think I give them a game, but I just don't. OKC's on a completely different level, right? And, you made a point earlier that this could be a dynasty. This could be, something that we're seeing year after year after year. And I also think that, Shea, Lou, Chet, they're in the mind frame of don't take anything for granted, right? You still got to get the job done. And then, you worry about the next one later, right? But at the same token, you look at what's happened over the last couple of years in the NBA, there's no guarantees that you even get back to this point, right? You look at the Celtics, team this year. You look at some of those other teams.
I feel like people last year after the Celtics would have thought, oh, they're set up for a nice little run.
What you learn, too, is that you're not taking anything away from how OKC's played, but health has to be on your side as well, right? And health has been on their side. So you've got to really take advantage of what's in front of you today and be where your feet are.
I feel like the Pacers have required miracles in every single round they've played, and they've been able to attack weak spots on literally every opponent they've played. OKC does not have any weak spots.
Yeah.
They're solid defensively across the board. They have an abundance of defense and toughness. So for last series, Pacers can we're going to attack Brunson here. We're going to put Towns in pick and rolls. Who are you going to do that
There's
to?
no one
on OKC. Even I feel like even their bigs like Hartenstein and Chet can switch pretty comfortably on Halliburton and make it tough on him to create offense consistently. I just feel like OKC is just across the board, potent, two-way, and they're deeper. And that's crazy to say because Pacers go 10 deep as well.
Well, you think about how the Pacers play, right? What do they want to do? They want to get up and down.
Speed you up and run.
They want
turn into a track meet.
They want to get a shot in 6 seconds or at least a good look in 6 seconds. They can get 3 field goal attempts or at least looks, getting their primary break, into your secondary, and then getting a set all before you get to that 18-second mark. But now you go up against a team that does what you do even better, right? And they do it from the defensive side. They manufacture a lot of that offense, a lot of the transition from the defensive side. So I think it's going to be, both these teams play similar styles, but OKC is just better at that brand of basketball.
You nailed it. Styles make fights. The fact that everything the Pacers want to do, OKC can just counter it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this point at breakfast, what seems like literally was still today, but feels like months ago.
Pre-tornado.
Yeah, pre-tornado. That every little element of Indy, OKC can match it and is better. So really, how does Indy have a shot here? And it's tough. One thing I will call you on, though, you sort of said Indy's been sort of lucky in some of these situations. When you have a coach, when you have a great coach like Carlo, you create your luck. You put yourself in those scenarios. So credit to them for sort of adapting each round. And honestly, credit to Siakam. Siakam's been playing. The guy's been balling out all playoffs, and I think if Indy's going to maybe take 2 games, Siakam is going to be a huge part of it. Siakam might have to be their best player.
Listen, Rick Carlisle is a warlock, all right? Yeah. I think he's kind of etched himself as
even without Dwayne Casey pulling the strings.
He's etched himself one of the best coaches of all time. He's staring down, trying to get 2 titles to his name, 2 different teams. I think his ability to adapt.
2 underdog titles, though, too. These are
Yeah.
2 teams that no one looked at as title teams.
And this is a point that's made about Carlisle, too. Like, he doesn't really have a system that's fixed.
Yes.
He plays to his personnel.
Shouldn't that be what all coaches do? Like,
It
you
should.
think
so.
Should.
If you're
Should.
going, why am I running a system if the parts don't fit? Be a
It
better coach.
should be, but a lot of coaches are also stubborn, right? And they are stuck in their ways. Okay, this is my system, and you're going to conform to it. And I think Rick Carlisle's done an exceptional job of adapting to not just his personnel, but the modern day game, right? Especially for an old school coach. But Indiana, and if they're going to have any success, Pascal's got to play, outside of himself, right? He's the one player that's going to be on the floor and going to play 40, 48 minutes that has won a championship, but has also had the basketball in his hands to make decisions, to make plays. And Caruso, you can put Caruso into that mix, but it's not the same level of player that Pascal is for Indiana.
So, congrats to Pascal for winning Eastern Conference MVP. He did not deserve it. I think Tyrese Halliburton deserved it.
Tyrese thought so too.
Yeah,
he walking up, strolling up.
He
Yeah.
a little bit.
What are we giving out an MVP for that? Who cares?
I mean,
it's just
besides the rule, I think it's 2 years in a row. I think they've gotten it wrong.
maybe make
the
a bigger
voters.
voting pool then.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, sorry, I know
This is
Fab's
for
not
Fab,
here.
yeah.
But Tim Bontemps, Fab still got beef over Jaylen Brown, over Jason Tatum.
Timmy good times.
We love you, Tim, but yes,
So
he's
I
got
think
beef.
Tyrese Halliburton is the engine. So you asked the question, how does Indy have a chance in the series? I think Pascal will give you a little bit, but Tyrese needs to be more consistent game to game. He has great games, and then he has a dud. Great game and a dud. Against this team, OKC, you need to be the dude, because if they're switching guys out to you, if they're forcing you to create offense against one of the best defenses in the league, you need to do it consistently. He's been amazing at not turning the ball over, which I don't think will be a thing against OKC. If Indiana has any chance, it's on Tyrese to elevate his game to another level entirely.
I'll say yes, Tyrese, but also those auxiliary pieces are going to be so much more, right? Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard are going to have big series, but they have to have a big series, but on the defensive end for me, right? I think we've seen, how Denver defended OKC, what to do. We also see in Minnesota what not to do, right? And I think if you're Coach Carlisle, you're taking a page out of Denver's book, right? In denying Shea up the floor, mucking up the game, throwing in some zones and, mixing up the defenses so that you keep them on their feet, right? And
so are you zoning up against Shea? Are you doing what Denver did? Are you throwing zones at him perpetually throughout the game?
I think, first of all, you cut off their water, right? Their water supply. And I think before you even go to the zone, OKC has a tendency sometimes to initiate the game or start the game with Shea off the basketball, right? So you can get into some flow and, he's catching it off of the move. But why are we letting him catch it, right? He's the most dangerous player on the floor when he has the basketball in his hands.
Try to keep it out of his hands.
So before you even get to a zone, you're denying him up the floor. And that's what Denver did, right? And later on, okay, he gets going. Now you're throwing in the zone. The interesting thing about zones as well is, when we're in man, if you get scored on twice, nobody says, okay, we got to get out of man. In zones, it's interesting. You get scored on twice in a zone, and everybody's
zone's not working.
Zone's not working. We got to get out.
Yeah.
No, play the long game with it.
Yep.
But for me, first, it's keeping the basketball to Shea's hand.
Interesting. So who's the person guarding Shea if it's off ball? Who's fronting? Is it primarily Nembhard? Is it Nesmith?
I think both of those guys can wear him out. You run those guys both at him all game and wear him down.
Yeah, Nesmith's ability to get over screens in the last series.
Nembhard showed us a ton in Game 7 with the way he defended Brunson. And, he was up in him, and Brunson, look, we've made a living off of betting Brunson points in the fourth quarter, and we saw the clutch award all year. Brunson dominates fourth quarter. That fourth quarter, Game 7, he was absolutely locked down. He wasn't even looking for his own shot.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
You also, to that point as well, when Indiana puts up a shot, closest man to Shea defends him, right? Whether it's Nesmith, whether it's, Nembhard, whether it's even Pascal, closest man, that's your matchup. Don't let him get it. Keep it simple.
And I trust Pascal in that situation. If it's a few possessions a game, he can hang with Shea there. One interesting, just to bring the betting angle to this, our eyes kind of like cartoons just jumped out of our head when we saw Shea to get an assist. So Shea to get 6 assists every game this series. It was a Fab bet. Fab hammered it last round. Fab crushed last round,
Yeah,
so
he did.
always
So did you?
Thank you. So it's about time.
I did not.
Hop
I
on.
failed.
Honestly, it's like hop on these Fab bets because he's red hot right now, and yeah, if they're gonna maybe zone up and Shea will be a little more of a distributor, 6 assists every game,
Which
I like
again
it.
plays into the whole, okay, if they do front Shea, try and take him out, stop the water, it goes back to that old theme, Chet Holmgren and J-Dub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They showed out in the Minnesota series.
Yes. Yeah.
They really, really did. That's kind of the, we asked a lot of questions of them throughout the playoffs. It looked a little murky there against Denver. And then against Minnie, they rose to the occasion. If that happens again on the biggest stage against a feisty Indiana team that can go 10 deep on you, I think to me that's
Then
very
you're looking
interesting development.
You're looking at them as not just Shea and his supporting cast. You're looking at them as like an organic big three, right? Built internally. And they did step up. And I think everybody had those questions about OKC coming into the season. When Shea's off and he's not having his best night, who steps up for them, right? And Chet showed us that, and Jay Will showed us that.
Honestly, for me, I had my doubts. Game 7 Denver, that was the finals. Those demons were exercised, especially with how slow they started.
Yeah.
And it looked ugly offensively in that first quarter. They exercised all of those demons, and to me, that was when they made their evolution to a
I
championship
think this
team.
is a Chet series. I think he's going to be tasked on, he's going to have to switch on to guys in the perimeter. He's going to have to lock them down, and I think he's capable of it. I really, really do. I think Miles Turner may not have a home this series.
Yeah.
I worry about his slow feet, quite frankly, especially on the perimeter. OKC will attack weaknesses.
Honestly, I like Miles Turner unders this series because I think just that we could see a lot of a couple games where he's only playing 24 minutes because he's not effective.
This is also a series for Oklahoma where their focus has to be yay high, because you go into this one and just like we started this podcast, everybody's thinking it's OKC in 5. It could be OKC in 4. Well, if they go into it thinking like that, that's when you get caught by surprise, right? So I think this is the most important, not just because we're talking about the Larry O.B. on the line, but you can't play down to your opponent in a sense after, the Minnesota run, after the Denver run, where your level of focus and tenacity had to be there. Can't come into this casual.
Well, so maybe you can speak to this, though. I'm sure you've been in situations where you're going into a game, you're a big favorite. You know the opposition. Hambone has a lovely stat for you here about them being a massive, massive favorite and cleared laid out.
So Thunder minus 700 according to FanDuel to win the series. The Western Conference team has been favored in 10 of the last 11 NBA Finals, and the only exception was the Celtics last year.
So is it hard to lock in when you know you're such an overwhelming favorite going into this?
It is hard to lock in that sense because you're dealing with such a young team, right? And they've never been there before.
Maybe ignorance is bliss for them.
Right? It's so I think
happy to be here.
There's even more importance, and you and I touched on it earlier. I think it was great for Shea to have the experience this summer and
at the Olympics,
and quote unquote fail, not have the success there, because and he even left that experience in. I remember after that last buzzer, the quarterfinals against France, went to the locker room, and his words to the guys were, he may have even took that experience for granted because it only comes by every 4 years. You take from that is the level of urgency that you need to have every time you step on the floor, right? So now can you share that with your squad? Can you share that with the guys, on your team? Because again, everybody says this could be a potential dynasty for years to come, but you're here now, right? There's no guarantees, tomorrow or the next year or the next year. So you really have to capitalize on what's in front of you.
Apollo Creed said it in Rocky 3. There is no tomorrow. So, but one thing I'm going to say.
Come on, man.
Man,
there's only water in here.
yes, there you go. I will say this. You touched on the Olympics. Batum, hit that shot again. Okay, come on. Let's see you do that again. But let's touch on just the Canadian factor of this. We talked about this last week. How Canadians have been dominating these NBA playoffs. It's unbelievable that we have 4, and it's not just guys who are on the roster. These are all guys who are going to be getting 3 starters and guys who are getting big minutes. For you coming up in Canada, I know we touched on this with our DSC hit, but just talk about what this means for Canada basketball to someone like you who grew up in the system.
I mean, it's huge, right? When I remember, when I was at Michigan, you didn't see other Canadians, right? And then, you further that and you play pro, you don't see Canadians, right? So for these guys, I think they've done an exceptional job of just taking that baton and running with it, but also going into a situation where they're dispelling all the notions, the previous notions that Canadians are soft, Canadians, aren't gritty and so forth. You look at Nemhard, you look at Lou Dort, Ben, SGA. These guys are like the gritty, tough guys on their team, right? So they're completely changing that narrative.
With any of them.
Dude, Lou especially, but also too, like,
kidding me?
Even Matherin comes from a rough part of Montreal, man.
Yeah.
Like, that guy can probably throw down. Like, I would not.
You see what he did to DeAndre Hunter? Poor DeAndre.
Yeah, those guys, and they, what they do? They like instill fear in their opponents and other guys across the league. Anytime there's a scuffle and Lou walks up, everybody's like, "I don't want no parts. Like, I'm good. You got it, Lou." So it's just impressive to see where it's come and the fact that they're laying new foundation for the next generations.
Yeah, I think to me, like 2 straight NBA finals with at least 4 Canadians partaking. Now, last year, obviously, you had guys like AJ Lawson, O'Shea Brissett. This time, you have 3 of them
But even
starting.
go back to the Nuggets where Jamal Murray was like
100%.
the second best player in a finals series.
I mentioned this too. Like Jamal Murray's numbers, they go up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Andrew Nemhard's numbers, they go up in the playoffs. Lou Dort finally gets all defense recognition, as he probably should have for years too. Ben Matherin struggled a little bit in that Knicks series. That
but he
came
bounced
alive.
back.
Like, to me, it's just resiliency, toughness.
And they're gaining respect from, their opponents, their colleagues, their peers, people across the globe. Like, there's kids going into the gyms now. They want to defend like Lou Dort. The skills trainers are implementing Shea's moves and so forth. We didn't have that before, right? So it's a completely different level.
I can't just give me another international tournament. Like, I know, like, I still have that taste of that third place victory, and like, imagine what the roster would look like if they're the 51st state, though. Okay, let's transition here because we still got a couple other NBA things to talk about.
Yes, we do.
Let's.
We made a lot
Raptors
of those 51st state jokes.
We have, yeah. We don't know how people feel about it. We'll see.
No, they're
hit and miss. Let's start with Giannis, though, because we talked Giannis last week.
Yep.
And since then, we've had Windy, your boy, Windy, say the big fish comment.
Friend of the pod.
We had Doug Smith say mutual interest.
Yeah.
We had Josh Lewenberg wrote an article on it. Maybe poured a little cold water on the whole thing, but this seems more realistic than it did a week ago.
Oh, it sure does.
You've been on this for a while now.
So I've been on this for a long time. I thought there was a chance the Raptors would sign him before he re-signed with Milwaukee and then ended up winning the title in 2021. I think there is interest, and the key word is mutual interest. If Giannis wants to come to Toronto, they will find a way to make him come to Toronto. I think that is the ultimate caveat. Now, the big question is, and I know we've debated off camera a lot about this, is are you giving up Scottie?
And I want to hear what Jevohn thinks on that.
So I think, for both sides, you got to evaluate one thing. Like, if Giannis is going to make a move like that, he's 30. He's going to be 31 in December. He's also got to be in a position where you're trying to win now, right? And if you're the Raptors organization, the front office, what are you giving up for Giannis? It's great, right? We're talking about a guy that's 30-12 this season, shot 60% from the floor. This is an MVP type talent. So you can't ever turn an eye to that. But you also can't give up the entire home, right? House and home for this player because you have let's just call it a 3-year window.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're doing this to win now.
And how do you give up a farm and then Giannis comes in and then he has no one to play with?
But that's where Scottie isn't really the farm, though, right? If you can give up Scottie and keep all the other pieces, and I know that'll be some tricky salary matching.
Well, if I'm Giannis, I'm looking at it, and I also say, I want Scottie, right? Yeah. You think about what type of defensive team they would be if you have Giannis and Scottie, on the floor at the same time, right? So it's going to get interesting, and at the end of the day, if teams want to make moves, I know we talk about the numbers a lot, they'll find ways to make it happen.
Well, honestly, if you want to just even mention RJ in a trade, just go to any comment section on Twitter, and you will see Raptors. The Raptors fan base does not want that.
Come on, man, you're gaslighting me. Don't do it.
let's hear it.
You should 100% trade RJ
of
trade for Giannis. It's not even a question.
It's stupid for anyone to say otherwise.
I think to me, it's more just about if Giannis wants to come to Toronto, John Horst just signed an extension in Milwaukee. He is secure in Milwaukee. I think they also need to win games because they don't own any of their draft equity.
Yeah.
Right? That all belongs to the Pelicans.
So it can't be a true tank. It can't just be they got the whole thing.
They still need to be kind of champing at the bit a little bit, right? You still need to kind of win games, similar to what the Nets had to do. And then finally they reacquired all their picks from Houston. So I think to me, if you can convince Giannis to say, I want to come to Toronto. And again, if I'm Giannis, I'm staying east. Jason Tatum's out next year with Achilles. I mean, who knows when he comes back. But Boston's wobbly. Probably have to get rid of some dudes. The Knicks just fired Tom Thibodeau.
Tibbs, yeah. So that's going to start. And I think right away, if Raptors were to make that move, you're tougher than Cleveland.
Cavs are frauds.
You're definitely tougher than Cleveland. Obviously, New York has whatever they have going on. Boston is injuries
Orlando's
and cap issues.
So what would you say RJ's perceived value is throughout the league then?
24-year-old leading scorer, man.
I think at the end of the day, he can put the ball in the hole.
Yep.
He adds an element of toughness to your team.
Playmaking really improved this season.
Playmaking improved. It was also needed for, the different phases that he played for the Raptors. I mean, he played some point guard.
Yeah.
Played some too. There was different injuries which helped him develop that. But his value is dependent on what that other team may look like, right? I mean, not everybody's going to have the same value. It's all situational. You're not going to have the same value for every team. So for him, you've got to get the best RJ. You got to give him some room to play, some runway to play, and we've learned that he can play make. So it's really situational.
I said this trade a couple pods ago. I'm going to repeat it for the people out there. Quickly, Barrett, Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, 9th overall pick, 2 firsts, add a swap, go crazy, do what you will.
So that's 3 firsts.
Too much
for Giannis and Kyle Kuzma.
Too much because you've lost too much. You've lost your point guard and you've lost your center.
Okay, well, hypothetically,
point guard and center.
Play with me here. Do you think a team that features Scotty Barnes, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brandon Ingram is a good 3? Like, is that a contending 3?
It looks good on paper, but it's got to work on the floor.
Probably need shooting.
You need shooting. You need creativity. You need.
I worry about the Pirtle fit.
You need some, rim protection, right? And you can't have Giannis playing your 5 for your 48 minutes of the game.
I don't think Giannis can defend on the perimeter as well anymore. He kind of got exposed against Indiana in that first round, so he needs to probably guard up.
Now, is that enticing on paper? Absolutely.
It's
very enticing.
You didn't have Jacoby Walter in there, right?
No, I think I was big on Jacoby Walter.
So, but I'm thinking if you swap out, if you're keeping Dick and putting Jacoby Walter in there, then
I think Dick has more value.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying from a Raptor perspective, it'd be nice to keep Dick. And then
I saw some stuff in Jacoby last year that
he had moments for sure.
I think he's adding strength in this offseason. He kind of had an all-around game, and I like his stroke. I think he can. I think
we're missing something with that. As much as we would like that, and how it looks good on paper, who gets the basketball over half and balances the floor for everybody?
Yeah.
Right. So it's sometimes less is more. Right. And I had a coach, John Beeline at Michigan, that always used to say that. I didn't understand it, but when you start to look at some of these situations, you can stockpile, and we've seen it. Like we've seen teams, buy 3, 4, 5 players, big name players, and it doesn't materialize, right? Because there has to be balance on the floor, and there has to be chemistry.
Ingram's the ultimate wild card. Like we don't even know what he can do. We've never seen him play with Scotty.
I've got high expectations for Ingram, because when he plays, the guy fills it up. He can score. We know he's a scorer, and if you can pair him with,
he can score on a losing team.
He's been on teams that have made the playoffs.
Right, so we got
the playoffs.
No, I'm not taking away from what you're saying, but how is he going to assimilate when there's different expectations? There's new expectations. This is not New Orleans anymore.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little bit more pressure and expectation in Toronto, which I think he, at this point in his career, is ready for.
Yeah.
But it's just expectation right now.
When he was healthy, I thought he wasn't necessarily adamant about being a number 1 option. I think he's very comfortable sliding into a secondary role in that regard. And if you do have a Scotty Barnes who will probably hog up a lot of the usage, initiate a lot of the offense, then a Giannis who's just going to a freight train going down the rim. Again, we're talking pipe dreams here, but I think Brandon Ingram could do very well in a complementary scoring role.
I think it's perfect. I think the role he would be in with, whether the Raptors make a move for Giannis or not, I think he's in a perfect role, especially at this point in his career where not everybody needs to be a 1A, right? Maybe being a second option, or maybe being a third option, or maybe being the guy that has the experience and knows when I need to step up and when I need to pull back, when I need to scale back, right? So I think he's in a perfect situation for him to have success, but to really help a team.
But I also worry a little bit about the whole, 3 guys making most of your money model. You know what I'm saying?
Well, especially in a second apron world, it doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, and what we've seen this playoffs is that depth wins.
Matters,
the Knicks didn't have enough guys, right? Whereas OKC and Indiana have an abundance of guys who can play.
Denver, same thing. Denver was done in by not having enough guys.
Didn't have enough guys.
They still took it to 7 without enough guys.
Yeah.
So
and see, I think the depth is one thing, but the glue in which that those 10, 12 players that are on the floor have is even more important, like that fabric. Right? We can say New York didn't have the depth, but they also didn't have the gumption that Indiana had. Right, those guys have been together for some time. And you look at New York; they've made big moves the last 2 seasons, right? So, how cohesive are those guys? Was it the cohesion, or was it the lack of depth? Which one was it?
Well, and what a segue, because they fired Tom Thibodeau today, and is that, are you done?
Big move. That's a big move.
To me, like, does that kind of signals that I think they're done? That means they don't want to mess with the core, and they're sort of saying we're doubling down on the core, and this was Tibbs' fault. But you look at it, like, what do they have? 1 playoff series win in the previous 25 years. Tibbs has now led you back-to-back 50-win seasons.
Takes you conference finals.
Yeah, like
Okay, two pieces of beef with Tibbs. All right.
Wagyu.
I hated their offense in crunch time, fourth quarter. It was just Jalen Brunson dribbling the air out of the ball and everyone watching. I think you had more offensive talent.
But that worked the 2 previous rounds.
I think that's a testament to Brunson's just amazing ability and just mental fortitude. The fact that he's able to do that and the footwork, it's beautiful to watch. But you do need
even
a
better
semblance
when you're
of an
betting on him
offense.
too.
Yes, I bet it is. You need a semblance of an offense, right? It just can't be him pounding the rock and everyone watching. They're too talented to do that. And Tibbs' just inability to play more guys. Like,
but then it's almost like
he did it eventually.
Yes.
Why the didn't you do it during the regular season? Inspire these guys, give them a little more confidence throughout the year. Also, like, take some mileage off the guys that you're running into the ground, like Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, like Jalen Brunson.
Well,
like,
I did see a little bit more offensively from Bridges late in those games when Brunson was shut down, where Bridges kind of took over some games in the fourth quarter with his scoring that I didn't really see. He had a bad regular season, especially like he started super slow. Are you happy with that core? Or do you think is firing Tibbs enough that you don't want to mess with the core?
You gave up a lot for Bridges.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, those picks were kind of nothing, though.
Sure, but I don't think he's justified what you gave up for him.
I think it's the money, too, of what he's making.
So I think with that core, what was strange to me was that you have a number of guys that are very similar in skill set, right? Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, defensive first guys that are, your wings aren't really creators. And I think with that group, they needed to be much better defensively, right?
Yeah, like how was the defense so bad?
Right, the defense was too bad to have those type of players, that mold of player and that profile of player. And then you're very dependent on your offense, which was very linear. It was very Brunson heavy. And that, to me, was the interesting part with that core, is that they should have been much better defensively to get away with, some of the offense.
So is that on Tibbs? Is that the way that offense runs, is that on Tibbs, or is that how you have to play with Brunson?
Well, I mean, Tibbs is gone, right? So
but like, is
tells you what Leon
is a new coach
right.
coming in? Is he going to say, "Hey, Jalen Brunson, you need to change the way you play in the fourth quarter," or are we going to see him pounding the ball for 15 seconds and then?
I think as a coach, your responsibility is to be creative, right? And those guys, the skill set's not going to change, but how do you get them engaged in the offense, right? How do you get the most out of them? And that's really going to be on your coaching staff. I also think the Tibbs firing it illustrates what was going on in the locker room, right? And despite them winning, despite the conference finals, guys weren't happy in the locker room because they were at a conference finals and he was fired, 2 days later?
And speaking of that locker room, we had that athletic report about everybody just getting on Towns and the bad Towns defense.
So here's the question. Can you win a title with Karl Anthony Towns as your primary big man defender? I don't think you can.
But I will always, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, that Nuggets series last year, man, he played good defense on Jokic. So, like, depending on what the matchup is.
And then they fizzled out in the conference finals.
That's fine, but that's not.
I think we're forgetting he's gone to 2 conference finals with 2 different teams back-to-back years. So
and he kind of saved the Knicks though in some of those games.
Dude, that game 4 was it game 3, game 4?
Yeah, we took over the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter, yes.
Unbelievable performance. I mean, there's rumors out there. I know it's been floated that he's more likely to be or he's been named.
Towns for Giannis.
Giannis, Kevin Durant. I think that actually kind of balances them out a little bit more. I'm a proponent of they do have good defenders too. It's just I don't think they have enough guys who can get into people's shirt. Quickness in the perimeter.
Well, it's the positions, right? Like, they have good defenders, but if you have Brunson at your point of attack and, Towns at your 5.
Untenable.
Well, I think that's where it's interesting with Mitrob. If you're getting a healthy Mitrob in a full season of that, which is a lot to ask, is that enough to rack it back with your personnel to be
a lot to ask on a Mitrob, too. I mean, great. He played great down the stretch.
So what do you guys think, though? Are you changing personnel, or is firing Tibbs enough?
I'm not changing personnel with this team.
I think you give it another year. Maybe.
You give,
unless
maybe a tweak here or there, but nothing major. Like they've gone through that the last couple of years, right? And we're negating the fact that they are in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Right. So that could just be one tweak away, and now you're going to disrupt a lot with a new coach coming in.
It's funny, it seems like the guy, and even though he didn't really have a good year, Dante DiVincenzo was really missed for offensively. They kind of just needed that one other perimeter scorer. Yeah. And I guess we all remember that clip with him and Tibbs going at it. Looks like he had the last laugh.
Yeah.
So,
and also, you look at the teams that are in the finals right now. Two things stand out to me. You have two really good guards, and you have chemistry. So if I'm an front office executive, I'm not going to pull the trigger too fast, especially with a team that's right at the door.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go then, let's just get a finals prediction. What do we're all thinking Thunder, but how many games?
It's Thunder in 5 or 6. Gun to my head, I'll go 5. I'll go 5.
Ooh, it's going to be up and down. It's going to be fast pace. It's going to be OKC in 5.
Wow.
Just to be different, I'll say Thunder in 6.
Wow.
But I do think it's 5. Now, do you have any bets you're leaning? We'll go on this
I mean, there's
either
not
game
much,
1 or the series.
There's not much value on the Thunder.
Yeah,
if you bet them straight up to win.
these lines have just been FanDuel. Great job. You've ruined the playoffs now by the finals. We were having fun the first 3 rounds, but
I have made a couple bets and perfect score, series correct score.
Mm-hmm.
So Thunder to win in 5 games, Thunder to win in 6 games.
Tell them about your real bet, man.
Which one?
That all Canadian McDavid. And McDavid and Shea.
Well, the Oilers Thunder parlay.
Oilers Thunder parlay.
I think it's the year.
What's that get you plus money? But it's just over
plus money.
Right?
We had a good segment in SportsCenter because if McDavid and the Oilers win and Shea and the Thunder win, who's the greatest athlete in Canada right now? And as a ball fan, I think it's close. I would still go Shea.
And you know what? I'll just say this. We shouted out Fab a lot. We didn't really shout out Wes, but we got some hockey talk in just for you, Wes. On that note, this is Basketball Island. Thank you for watching. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast.
Live from OKC.
Live to tape.